Yeah, talking of that platform DAZN there, you've made the decision now to sign with DAZN, leaving TNT and moving over to DAZN in the very near future. April, I believe it is? April, yeah. Is it competition or is it teamwork with Matchroom now? How does that dynamic work between you two?
Competition. Always be about competition. And working together, there's no problem with that, because the working together has created fights that are competitive and fights that maybe have never got made. But no, we're competitive. We're at DAZN to be the top promoters on DAZN. We're not going to DAZN to make up numbers. That's why we're there. We will put on the best shows. That's our mission statement.
With the recent cooperation between yourself, Matchroom Boxing, and Eddie Hearn specifically, who over the years you two have had your back and forths, of course, that happens across the YouTube outlets. But do you feel that the friendship, I guess, the teamwork and relationship might not have got to the place if it wasn't for the move from Saudi Arabia to come into boxing? And Eddie kind of mentions that it's got the two heads together and forced you into a room to have that conversation. But do you think that conversation would have happened outside of Saudi Arabia's introduction to the sport?
No. Saudi, His Excellency in the Riyadh season made it happen.
I remember when it was the COVID period and Queensbury Promotions had put out the 5 versus 5 that you'd wanted to do.
We've always thought about it. You know, it's always been a thing, which I always felt had a lot of legs, and George felt.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, as you say, during COVID, we did broach the subject.
But this is the thing. So we come out of COVID, and I remember speaking to Eddie Hearn, we were in a scrum, and I said to Eddie, look, you come out of COVID now, but both of you seemed like you wanted to have that conversation and talk, and that meeting just never happened. It slipped to the wayside almost.
There was never a meeting.
Yeah, exactly. Conveniently, inconveniently, is always crossing the streets and maybe never saw quite the glance of each other's eye. But now that you're kind of working together, what's that relationship been like?
It's been good, I mean, it's a working relationship. I mean, we're not in each other's pockets from my perspective. I mean, I speak to Eddie. I can't be honest, I don't speak to him that much, but when we do meet and whatever, it's pretty good. And same with Frank Smith. He's I think he's his CEO, isn't he? Yeah. Frank, who's a good guy. But George has more. My son George, who's the CEO of Queensbury, they have more, probably a daily dialogue, more than I do. That's for sure.
That Matchroom versus Queensbury 5v5, first time round, ended up in a resounding victory for Queensbury Promotions. You had the conversation as well in the Q&A for the second iteration of the 5 versus 5 there. Can you say as to any of the fights, any returning fighters from the first fight as to who might be in the second iteration of it?
It's all about picking the weights. We'll pick 2 weights, they'll pick 2 weights, and His Excellency will pick 1 weight. So let's see what the weights are first of all.
Well, what's the weight you have in mind? You've got 2 of them and you're right here.
I'll tell you, one of them will be the heavyweight. Mm-hmm. No-brainer for us, isn't it?
Absolutely. Just speaking about the industry as a whole, and first of all, we talked about your mission statement earlier as to getting a stronghold within the heavyweight division, but if you rewind in those COVID periods and obviously maybe the promoter Cold War between yourself and Eddie Hearn, there was obviously a lot of conversation as to where each other was standing within the UK and abroad. My question here is longevity in the sport, what does it take? And with the introduction of other younger promoters who have their bit between the teeth just like yourself, do you see yourself outrunning some of the younger promoters in the game?
Well, longevity is about living a long time. That helps. Look, we just keep doing what we're doing. We've always done. We've been very successful over the years. Like everybody, you have your ups and downs, but we've been very successful. We've probably worked with every single major fighter, or probably 99% of any major fighter in the UK, and some from around the world. And we launched a Showbox series in America. We had regular dates on HBO and Showtime. So we've done, we've had some dates on the ESPN, but we had a lot of big dates, and built a lot of fighters up. And it's something we enjoy doing, and we as I say, we had our sort of mission statement 5, 6 years ago, and it came through. I mean, you know, when you think Daniel Dubois, we signed him 10 years ago. 10 years is a long time. That's when we identified him. Moses has been with us for 3 years. We identified him before, you know, which is a while ago. So that was our commitment, and that was before Riyadh happened. And now Riyadh season happened. I mean, it's been amazing, been unbelievable. The opportunities for the fighters, for the promoters, getting big fights on, competitive fights, and we're blessed because we got fighters that we can put into competitive fights.
Talking about the Riyadh season, look, huge positives in terms of the fights that have been made that weren't being made before, the conversations that we've been had, cooperations that have been had before, but some suggest about the detriment it might have to the UK scene. And you've been always committed to the UK scene. Your goal shows, Magnificent Seven shows. Do you share any of the feeling that for some that the shows might...
Great shows. I mean, you look at the shows we've delivered in 2024 in the UK. They've been brilliant shows. Absolutely brilliant shows. You know, I mean, you look at Joe Joyce against Derek Chisora. What a cracking fight that was. You look at the show that we did, the Magnificent, well, a couple of them we've done, I mean, the Magnificent Seven shows. They've been brilliant shows. You look at the show up in Liverpool with our Liverpool fighters. Just brilliant fights. You know, Nick Bourne and the team, they've been fabulous. So they haven't been lost out. You know, they have appeared. And then you look at the Riyadh season show at Wembley, which was a brilliant night, a great night, and fabulous fights. So I think you know, all in all, it's just got better and better, and the quality's got better, and the shows we've got coming up in the UK from I think it's the first big show was it in February up in Manchester. From that show onwards, look at the fights that we're putting together. They're fabulous cards.
You've always been able to navigate those choppy waters when it comes to the boxing scene. How difficult a prospect do you think it would have been if Turki Alalshikh didn't come into boxing? How difficult would the competition have been to get Queensberry Promotions to where it is right now if there wasn't that influence? Well,
the fighters we had signed. The fighters that have been fighting in, our sort of marquee fighters were already signed, so they fought out there. What's happened is that we've got them into some of the fights we've been trying to get them into, which has been brilliant. It's been fabulous, and he's been fabulous for him. We all know it. He's a massive boxing fan. He loves it. He showed that by investing in buying Ring magazine now, and he's relaunched that. Was it 102, 103 years old now? It's just that's his commitment to the sport. That's what's so good about it, because he's such a fan. We all get on well because we're fans. You're a fan at the end of the day. Sure. It's what we do all the time. Mm-hmm. As much as you do your interviews, on the night you're sitting there watching the fights because you're a massive fan. Mm-hmm. That's what we are. Mm-hmm. And he's a great fan.
A little plug for the fans if you haven't seen that Q&A there. Going on to, gotta get that in, Matt. Talking about Eddie, he's had a bit of an interesting last couple of years in boxing with a lot of kind of, I don't know how you'd say, maybe 1 foot in, 1 foot out the sport. Do you see potentially, I mentioned there about outrunning other promoters, just more of the kind of celebrity appearances, I guess. Recently he was on what's that show called? Question of Sport as well too. Oh, really? Yeah, I'm not saying that you wouldn't get a slot there, Frank. Absolutely, I'm sure there'd be.
I've done it.
Oh, you have already? How many times? I'm sure you have. But is that one of those things where you see the direct competition as you'll still be there when they won't be?
No, I got to be honest. I don't even think about it. I just think to myself. I only think about what we're doing. I don't sit here thinking, what is he doing? What's this one doing? I think about what we've got, and they're our troops. What we're doing with our troops, how we're going to deploy them, what fights we're going to put them in. That's what we do. What the other side, what our I can't say enemies, but what our adversaries are doing. That's their business. I don't get in. I've never have thought about that. I always think about what we're doing, and provided we know what we're doing and we're successful. That's all that counts, because we're good at what we're good, and I think we're the best at what we do. Eddie's very good at what he does. Very good. He works very hard, And you're right, he does promote himself, and he likes that, and he enjoys that side of it. That's fine. I mean, I suppose when I was younger a bit, maybe I did, but I'm much rather now these days. I work hard. We work 24/7. Because of different time zones and different countries we deal with. Most of our shows are on a Saturday evening, so you work. You're working long hours. So my downtime, whatever it is, I want to be enjoying myself. Yeah. I'll go to the football. I'll go and have me nice long lunches, and then they can wheel me in and put me in the cupboard and get me out in the morning.